Hi there, and welcome. Today, you'll learn all you need to know about usestate and how to use it in your project. First, what is a usestate hook? A usestate hook is simply a React hook that helps you to update your variable. It manages the state of your variable and it helps you to update it. It takes in a parameter, which is your initial state, and it returns an array, which you can destructure by assigning variables to them. And the common convention is something and set something. Something is the state of the variable, while set something is the function that updates the variable. I'm going to show you quick examples on how to use usestates in your app. And here is our first example. And if you look at our counter that we have, our UI here, it does nothing so far. So now we'll add use state to it to edit our state and to update our counter while we press each button. And first thing I want to do is import use state from React. Then you go down at the top level of your component. You want to initialize the state, cost, count. And you can choose to initialize your value to anything. In my case, I will use 0, but you can choose 1. You can choose to use 1. You can choose to use 0. You can, in my case, I'll leave it as 0. And you want to go into your app and update. And now you have your count. And this is the same count that is you initialize it to. Let's say 2, it will be 2. Let's say 4, it will be 4. And in my case, I'll return it back to 0. And now I want to create the function for the increase count and decrease count. And we want to go down below our use state and create a function of increase. It's just going to set count to count plus 1. And for decrease also, it will be decrease count minus 1. And we want to go into our buttons and add the functions. Increase. And I'll go on click. It should decrease. And if we go to our app now and try to increase the state, we see that it increases. But there's one pitfall using your useStorm set state like this. Because if I try to update it 4 times, anytime I click the button once, then this is going to happen. It's only going to run 1 time. It is not going to update the previous state. Why this happens is because usestates only updates and run once. And while this is running, it uses the current state for all of them. And if you want to get the previous state, instead of using the same state for everything, what you can do instead is change this to be count. You get a previous count. I set it as an arrow function that returns the new count. And then you can now call it 4 times. And now if I hit increase, it's going to increase it by 4 times. And that is it for this example. And we'll move to next example of how we can use usestates. And in this, our next example, I went ahead and created a form, basic form to collect users' inputs. We are going to use usestate to manage the state. So if we just type in something like this, let's come and we hit submit. It does nothing currently. So we use usestate to receive the user input into our app. First thing I want to do is import your usestate. And then you go into our app. So we also create two types of use states, one for string, one for objects. And I'm going to explain why we are creating it. Let me just type it out. First, I want to have first name and set first name, and this is gonna be a use state initialized to an empty string. And we want to duplicate it for last name and email. So now we'll create another state that is going to update our user. And let's say we'll carry this user and set user, and we want to update this to follow convention camel casing. And we want to update this to be, and we want to initialize it to be an object. An object that is going to have first name to be an empty string and last name to be an empty string and email to be an empty string. So now that we've initialized our app, we've initialized our states, what we want to do next is to pass it into our input. We'll pass it into our input, and we want to update also our message at the bottom. First thing I do is this. We'll go into our input and pass in the value, and this is going to be for first name. And if we go into our app now and try to type something inside our input, it doesn't work because we've passed in the value into our input, and the input is not listening to change. And we'll go back into our app and listen to the change. On change, we want to set first name to equal the current value of the input. So e.target to the value. And now it should work just fine. And now our first name working back. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of them. I'll copy, I'll paste. I'll copy, I'll paste. And if I'm yet to change the name, and if I go into my app and try to type and run, it's going to update it in all of my inputs. So you just want to go back and change it to last name. And this is going to be set last name. Email. And you set email. So we've updated our input. And if we go into our app now and try to say something, let's say John Doe at gmail.com. I will try to submit. This does not do anything because we've prevented the form from defaulting to its behavior. So we stop that behavior of the form. Now, what we want to do next is we want to update our message anytime we press the submit button. And we want to clear the input. We want to clear the input and set it back to empty empty input. And the way we're gonna do that is by taking our user, and this is the reason I use objects. So you know how to object or update objects and use it also. And first thing you want to do is get your state, get your values. You already have your values. So what you want to do is this. You take your user state and you set state, set user, and this is going to take in an object because the initial state of the hook was an object. So this is also going to take in an object, and we can do like this. And first name is going to be first name, and last name is going to equals to last name, and our email is going to equal to our email. And of course, you can use shorthand for this, but I decided not to use shorthand. And now we can come down here and update our 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 message. So we'll go down and change this to user dot first name, and also this to user dot last name, and we want to change this also to be user dot email. So now if we go back into our app and type something, let's say Jose, and we typed in Azad, and the last thing is we just want to type joe at gmail.com. If we hit submit, now it will update our app and set our message to have the names and the email will pass into it. And as you can see, that is our app updated. And that is the end of our second example. And if you want to see more example like this, let me know so I can create more tutorial on how to use hooks and how to better use your state in React. And thank you for watching. If you love to see more tutorials like this, you can drop it in the comment section and give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.